Welcome to the Youth POV podcast with Ty Castillo
and Lily Johnson.
Our goal is to help youth know God and make Him known while living in a messy world. Join us as we discuss various topics like walking with Jesus, sharing your faith, trials and temptations, and so much more, all from a youth perspective.
So let's go.
What is going on, guys? Welcome back, or welcome to the Youth POV podcast. I'm Ty.
I'm Lily, and we're so glad you're tuning in with us today. And like always, shout out to our producer, Lauren. Thank you so much for working behind the wall, getting everything ready for us.
Seriously. So, guys, we have a very, very special guest today. We got Mr. Caden St. John. How's it going, Caden?
It's going pretty good. How y'all doing?
We're doing awesome.
We're great. Yeah, thank you so much for coming on. We're so excited to.
I'm beyond excited. I can't wait.
Bro, yeah, it's the dream, dude. Having you on, it's so sick.
Yeah, it's gonna be awesome.
Yeah. So, Caden, tell them just a little bit about yourself.
So my name's Caden. I'm 19 years old. I almost said I was 20 because my birthday's in a couple of days. But
really?
Yeah, me and my sister were 10 days apart. So my sister's birthday was just yesterday.
And so my mom's.
Really?
Yeah.
That's so cool. Mm-hmm. May 6th, the way to go, I guess. You know? Yeah. So, I'm 19 years old. Right now I'm at North Central University.
Yep.
I went to high school in Lakeville, Minnesota.
Yeah.
And then my parents now just moved to Cold Spring, Minnesota, because my dad and mom are lead pastors at that church. And so that's kind of where I'm living for the summer, is Cold Spring, Minnesota. And actually, what's crazy is tonight I go on staff at Cold Spring on that church as a part-time youth pastor. So,
That's great.
That's pretty cool. It's going to be pretty exciting, pretty fun. But
so it's going to be like father-son duo, like you're
running the church.
It's going to be fun. It's going to be, my uncle was just a youth pastor.
Really?
And so, he's leaving.
The whole family tree is...
Seriously.
I know. It's pretty crazy. So
that's hype.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Stories, man. That's sick, though. So what's like sports did you do like growing up?
Yeah, so in high school, growing up I played a lot of different sports, but in high school I kind of quit everything and just played hockey. So hockey was like my main thing. Yeah. It was like I really did not like missing. So like in hockey off season, there was other like leagues and other things that you did, other practices, and I really did not like missing those practices and those games and stuff for other sports.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, you know, it's not worth it. So I just loved playing hockey. So yeah, that was. I also love spike ball.
Mm-hmm.
Spike ball, dude.
Spike ball is.
Oh yeah, it's legit.
Best,
it's legit. It's not really like a sport that like our school had or anything, but me and my buddies would love to go play in like tournaments and stuff like that.
Yeah, there's an actual app that you can like sign up for and find people to play. Like it's
So I have this one friend that's really good.
Yeah.
And anytime there was a tournament, I'm like, bro, like, I want to be your partner, you know, because he's nasty.
Yeah.
And we played in this one tournament a while back, and it was like a tournament, and if you won that tournament, and it was something that had to happen, but then you go to nationals in Georgia, and you play on ESPN. We didn't come close to winning, but it would have been fun to be able to play it in that tournament. But
it's a big thing, yeah.
Bro, you asked Lily and Owen, her boyfriend. Yeah. They are like power duo in spike ball.
Oh, let's go.
Whenever,
it's pretty great.
Whenever it's them against anybody else, we're like, okay, so how much can we not lose by? That's the goal. Because
me and Ty versus you two after this. Let's run it.
Wait, what? Just me?
No.
Okay, later tonight.
Yeah, later tonight. We gotta wait for
it. Yeah, later tonight. That's what I was talking about.
Yo, I thought you meant like after this. Like, oh my guys, he cannot
call Owen up. Tell him to.
I have to. Yeah, later tonight.
Yeah, for sure.
That's awesome. Sure. Yeah, you're speaking tonight at Youth. How great is that?
Yeah,
I'm stoked. Awesome. I'm really excited. So I'm excited for what I feel like God's placed on my heart for tonight. So you guys are kind of gonna get a little bit of what my heart's been through high school tonight. So it's going to be fun. It's going to be exciting. So
yeah, that's awesome.
That'll be awesome.
Well, yeah, like we do every episode, Caden, do you have a Jesus moment of the week that you could share with us?
A Jesus moment of the week?
Yeah.
Oh, man. Like something where like God has spoken to me, or like something where like I've seen God show up.
Yeah, anything like that.
Yeah. I think just one of the things that has been speaking to me lately is right now I'm doing a Bible in a year plan.
Yep.
And I'm reading through the story of David. And what's been super cool for me to see is that David, he was one of the guys that we see, maybe one of the most influential men ever to live. And I look at David's life and I see, man, he's not perfect. But one of the things that I see about his life is that when he messes up, he immediately runs to the presence of God and he immediately asks, like, God, would you forgive me? You know, like he immediately acknowledges what he did wrong and just finds himself sitting in the presence of God. And that's just kind of one of the things that I've begun to realize is that in this life, you know, we're going to go through things, we're going to do stupid things at times, but it's how you respond to those things.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so that's just been one of the things that I feel like the Lord has really been teaching me in this season is, Caden, how are you going to respond to the seasons that are tough, the seasons where you might do something wrong, the seasons, like, what are you going to respond to that? And I just think that how David responds in a lot of ways is pretty cool, where he continually runs to Jesus. So
yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
I think that's a good, like, expectation for us to have. It's just like accept that none of us are perfect. So like focus on what we're gonna do after the fact.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I try to notice the seasons I'm in. Like, I'm like, okay, I'm in a good season right now.
Yeah.
Like I'm doing good. So what can I do to prepare for the bad season that I know is gonna come?
That's good, bro.
Yeah,
that's good. That's good.
Dude, like last was it last episode with Ben? Yeah, we were talking about seasons and just like storms going through life. And how there's tough times and tough moments, but
how to get through them.
Right.
Yeah.
Keeping God in the center of them. So
yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome, dude. Well, okay, this is completely off topic. This is not even relevant.
All right.
But I got a question, okay?
Let's hear it.
What is the best worship song?
The best worship song. Oh man, you got me in a pickle right now because there's so many.
There's
like,
no
here's the thing
one.
you know about me. It's like if someone asked me like who's my best friend, I could tell you like 15 different people that are like my best friend. If you ask me what my favorite worship song is, I could tell you like 15 different worship songs that I'm like, man, these right here are my favorites. Right now though, I've really been liking MBL worship. They've been really good, and my favorite song is actually I don't even know what it's called. It's like the audio recording that I have. But other than that, I would say, man, my favorite song right now is probably Majesty.
Oh, yep.
It was written by Hillsong like a while back, and then there's been a bunch of different people that have redone it in different ways. And it's an old song, but it hits every time. Like, it's so good. So I would say that's probably my favorite song right now.
Yeah, I feel like you have to say like favorite song right now because there's no way that anyone could choose one single worship song that's their favorite.
It's so hard.
Oh, I know.
There's
so many good ones.
There is.
It's crazy. It's
like,
crazy.
Where do I start? I think I could name like 50 different worship songs, and I'm like, that's a good one, but that one's a good one.
Yeah.
So, Lily, what's your favorite worship song, if you had to pick right now?
Oh, at the moment, one that I've been listening to is "Love You to Death" by Josiah Queen.
Yep.
Yeah, that's probably the one I'm playing a lot right now. But yeah, like I said, I can't choose just one.
Yeah. How about you, Ty?
Yeah.
I'd say "You Saved Me" by Upper Room.
Oh, come on!
If you guys have heard that one.
Yeah, that's a great one.
That one's such a good one.
I'm a fan.
I like the songs that are like the longer ones that you can worship to. You know.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
Like a lot of the
Maverick City.
Spirit-led.
The ones
They're still like 10 minutes
20
long.
There's what I'm trying to think of the song, but there's one that goes like 20 minutes long.
Yeah.
And they have a like half short version where it's like 10 minutes, and then they have one that's like. No, by Maverick City.
Oh, by Maverick City.
Yeah. And then there's one that's
sometimes those are good to listen to, but other times it's just like, I just need the radio version.
It depends on the vibe. Yeah, for sure.
Always. Bro, yeah. So, we're kind of talking about a little bit about sharing and living out, like, a lifestyle of being a Christian. Yeah. Right? And I heard that, and you were talking about, when we were talking earlier before this, about the story about your friend who ended up well, do you just want to go share that story? I won't spoil it.
I'll share that for sure. So I would say the story that I'm about to share it's a story that was really hard. It was a really tough season for me to walk through, and it completely changed the way that I live my life. And I remember in 10th grade, I walked into school, like first day of second semester, and there was this girl that walked into class behind me, and I had a graduating class of about 550 or so students. And so it's like you didn't really know everyone in your grade, but you kind of like knew everyone.
Yeah.
Like it's not like I could go up and like say someone's name like for every person in my grade, but it's like
we knew their face.
Yeah, you knew that. Yeah, you knew their face.
Yeah.
Right.
And so I walked into the class and I'm like, man, I never seen that girl before, and she gets assigned seated right next to me, and so we just go through that hour, and then I go to my second hour class, and again she sits right next to me, and then I go to my 6th hour class, and she gets assigned seated right next to me, and I was like I didn't think anything of it really at the time, like this girl that I've never met before sits next to me in 3 different classes, but in a graduating class of 500 students, but then I just kind of went along with as the semester went along and just different things like that. We kind of grew a little bit closer. We started to, to talk a little bit more, hang out a little bit more in class. She was good friends with a lot of my friends. She just moved into the city around that time, and I remember I was sitting in class a lot of times in my 6th hour even, and she would just take her desk and she would turn it around and just talk to me for the entire hour. Neither of us liked our teacher very much, so it kind of worked out nice. But yeah, she would literally just sit there and just talk to me for the entire hour. And I remember, I'll never forget this one weekend where our teacher got really mad at us. And on the way out of school, we were kind of talking about what we were going to do over the weekend, stuff like that. And she sends me a text later that night and says, "Monday will be interesting," with a laughter emoji. And then I remember on Saturday morning, I was on the way to my cousin's hockey game. And as I'm driving down the road, I look to my right, and I see a car that is like so messed up, you could hardly tell it was a car anymore. And I just remember sitting there in that moment just praying, like, Lord, just praying over the accident, praying over the situation, not knowing that a few hours later at my cousin's hockey game, I would get a call from a girl at school. And she said, "Caden, you'll never believe what happened this morning." She was like, that girl that you always hang out with at school, that girl that you're always talking to at school. Last night she was out doing some things that she shouldn't have been doing, and this morning she was running from the cops and gotten in a car accident and died. And, in those moments, something began to shift inside of me, where I want to live like Jesus now in everything that I do. Because my hope and my prayer is that someone, somewhere, somehow, can know and experience the love of Jesus in the way that I live my life. And so I just remember going to school that next Monday morning, and Monday it was really interesting, just like she said, but not in the way that she thought, and I just remember walking into school, and every class period, every time I'd walk into class, especially those 3 classes that I had with her, it was like I sat there with my head buried in my desk, and every time I would pick my head up, as tears began to flow down my face, I would see an empty seat sitting in front of me. And, that's why I want to become more like Jesus every day, is because I can't let another Sydney pass away without hearing about the love of Jesus. I can't help but think about the friends I'm living my life with every day and just hope and pray that I show them Jesus in the way that I live. And so, yeah, that was a pivotal moment in my life where, man, it changed the way I thought, changed the way I acted, changed the way I did things, because now it's like I walk into a room and it's like, all right, if I say this, if I do this, are people going to see Jesus through it? Because if I'm not glorifying Jesus, if I'm not honoring Jesus in the things that I do, then people are going to walk away knowing that I'm a Christian and thinking that they can do the same things. And so I just want to live my life in a way where I honor Jesus, and my prayer is that people can then learn what it looks like to follow Jesus based off how I live my life. And so, yeah, that's just kind of that story that it played a huge role in my walk with the Lord. So, yeah.
Dude, that's like, it's a really good notice thing, because then once again, you have like that motivation now. You'd be like, man, I don't want someone, because you don't know if someone's going to go and they're going to like either die or they might get in a car crash as they leave or something like that. So it gives you that motivation, being like, man, these people, they might not go to heaven. Like, we know the truth about Jesus. Like that's something that we need to be more open with, and not even just living, like, sharing the straight gospel with them. But the one quote, you said it a few times, it was the one that was like, sometimes the only Bible that people will read is you.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a lyric from a song. Yeah, like if I'm the only Bible that they read, let the words that they read be what you wrote or something like that. Yeah.
That's good. Yeah. That's good stuff.
That's Josiah Queen, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what I thought.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
But no, it's just amazing that you had that like realization. Like it sucks that you had to go through that, and I'm really sorry that happened. But I'm glad that God put that realization in your heart.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like we talked about just a little bit before, like, you went through that really tough season and experienced that, but like now how are you going to respond? You can either like, be mad, turn away, but you're choosing to, use it as courage and confidence and motivation to really spread the gospel everywhere you go and be that light for people. Yeah,
that's true. How you respond.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I remember in that season, I was sitting with my parents. Like that season was really tough for me.
Yeah. Because
I was just sitting there and I was like, man, I could have said something, like I could have done something. I talked to her every day. Like, is there anything I could have done? And it really messed with me. And I remember nights sitting up in my parents' room, just crying and just sitting there and like, just crying with them. Like, man, is there anything I could have done? And it was a season that was really tough on me. But I remember one time I was sitting there with my grandma and I was talking to my grandma and she's like, Caden, there's one of two ways you can go when it comes to situations like this. You can either take what the enemy meant for evil and allow it to stay at a spot where nothing happens with it, or you can take it and you can turn it for good.
Yeah.
And so now I've just been like, man, I want that to be a testimony of mine where I can watch as now the Lord turns it for good.
Yeah.
As now the Lord walks it for good. And just like you were talking about, how are you going to respond? And it was in that moment where it's like, all right, am I going to keep like sitting here sulking over it, or am I going to go and now make a difference with the way that I live my life?
Yeah.
Because now I want to respond differently.
Yeah.
And now I want to become more like Jesus. And now I want people to follow Jesus. And now I want my friends, like, I can't help but tell my friends about Jesus, because my prayer is that they know Jesus. I can't let that happen to another one of my friends again.
Yeah.
And so, I think that's really good how you worded that, like, how are you going to respond?
Yeah.
You know? So, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Dude, I had one story. So, God was really pushing me. About a year ago was when He was really like trying to make me go out and evangelize more, tell more people about Jesus.
Yeah.
And in my like trying to, figuring out what I'm gonna say to people, that type of stuff, responding. I was at Walmart and there was a guy, he pointed out to me and he's like, go evangelize that guy. And, I'm like contemplating with God, like, whoa, but I don't, like, I don't have to. I could just keep walking. And finally, I, built up the courage and I went over there and I was like, hey, bro, what's your name? I talked to him and asked him, like, shared a little bit of the gospel with him and told him about how much Jesus loves him. And what was really powerful, not that because he didn't say that he was going to give his life to Jesus, and I don't know where he's at now, but he said, and this guy's like, middle-aged, like probably 30s.
Yeah. And
he's like, man, you don't know. I was going to go home and I was going to kill myself because I felt like there's nothing else in the world for me.
Really?
That was the moment where it like really switched me on. I was like,
that's powerful, bro.
The fact that like, dude, if I didn't share with him, like he could have gone to hell. And I'm like, that really impacted me. I'm like, dude, hell being eternal, like, I have the truth that I can share with people. And I want
wouldn't I do it?
Everybody I can.
Why wouldn't
to come with me?
Yeah, bro, that's encouraging. Because I think a lot of times it can be tough, to sit there and it be like, man, should I really tell this person? Should I really step out? Like, what are they gonna think of me? Like, what's gonna happen? And it can get easy to play those mind games, but. That's encouraging to hear, because I think a lot of times I look at my life and it's like one of the things that's hard is it's hard to confront your friends. Yeah. And it's hard to say things to your friends. It's hard to...
It's almost easier to go up to someone who you don't know, you know, because who knows if you'll ever see them again. So it's like,
Yeah. And just one of the things that the Lord's really been challenging me with lately is it's like, the thing I would hate more than anything else is for me to get to heaven and one of my friends not make it, and just saying, Caden, if you would have just told me I was living wrong. Caden, if you would have just told me, like, I'd be there with you, and like that really sticks with me, because it's like, man, I have so many friends, that need to know about Jesus. And it's like, if I don't tell them, who's gonna?
Right.
And so it's sitting there in a spot where it's like, man, you know, I want to make sure that I'm stepping outside of my comfort zone just like you did in telling others, you know, about Jesus, or telling others, confronting them about different things, or just different things like that, where it's like, man, then I can watch as hopefully my friends then choose to make the right decisions, even though it might be tough in the moment to confront them or to tell them about Jesus or whatever it is. But yeah, that's an encouraging story about the Walmart story.
Yeah. Well, even if you just do what you feel like you're being called to do, then it's really, as long as you do your part, you know, just give it to the Lord, and, you know, he will continue and fulfill the plan, you know, but it's just up to us, you know, to take that first step of faith and obey what he's asking us to do.
Yeah, that's good.
There's something I was going to talk about. What was I going to say? Okay.
That's the worst, isn't it?
Yep, I remember.
Oh, let's go. So it's like the worst and then the best.
Right, and then you completely forget
I got it.
Bro, happens all the time. But no, there's one thing that I hear a lot of people, and they make this excuse all the time. I think we have all made this excuse at least at one point. God's telling us to go at least be encouraging to someone or share with someone, and you're like, oh no, God will send someone else to do that. And one thing that I don't remember where I heard it, but I heard it from somewhere, and it said, what if you were that other person? What if someone else said, God will send someone else,
that's
and you're
good,
that
bro.
other person?
That's good. Yeah.
That's really good, bro.
Dang.
That's also another thing that's really encouraged me on my walk with God to share as much as I can whenever he's pushing me.
That's good. That's good stuff right there.
Yeah. Dude, so you have another story. So after that, right, you went on to probably, I assume, like, you changed your perspective on life, right? You started maybe living a little bit different, right? So you had a story about your hockey friends. Yeah. Would you like to share that?
For sure. This story gets me excited because it's my bros, you know? It's like it's my buddies.
Dude, seeing close friends come to Jesus is just
it's for real
best
the best
thing in the world.
Yeah. So in that season where my friend passed away and, you know, all that, I was playing on the hockey team, and I really looked up to all the older guys on the team, like the juniors and the seniors, and I was sitting there, and I'm like, one day I'm sitting in the locker room, and I'm laying back in my locker, you know, after a practice, I think it was, or something like that, and it was more so not just a day, but a thing that happened continually, where I came to practice, and I watched as all my teammates would say all these things that they've been doing. They'd be saying all, like, words I never heard before, and they'd be talking about all these different things. They'd be doing all these different things, and I just remember sitting there, and as I'm sitting in my locker, the Lord just began to break my heart for my teammates. And so I didn't know what else to do, except for I went home and I began to write my teammates on a list, and I'd go through every night and not pray for every one of them, but there was specific ones that I put on the list, and I would go through and I'd pray for each name I had on the list every night. And I remember sitting there, and there were some guys where I'm like, God, I don't know how you're going to do it, because this kid's one of the worst kids I've ever met. But I would just love to see it if this guy would just give his life to Jesus. And I just watched as God slowly begin to move in the hearts of my teammates. And my senior year, I watched as 12 of my teammates and one of my coaches gave their lives to Jesus one night at youth group. Wow. And so it was just like a cool story of where, you know, I just watched God show up in my teammates' lives. And yeah, it was just in that season that God broke my heart for lost people with what happened with Sydney, with what my teammates were doing. And it was just like a thing where it's like, man, I want my teammates, I want my friends, I want my peers to come to know Jesus. And it was a powerful moment. Man, so
that's so powerful. We'll talk about it a little more right after the break, so we'll be right back.
Let's do it.
Stepping aside from the episode really quick, I wanted to share with you guys some things that we are connected with as the Youth POV podcast. In Matthew chapter 18, verse 20, Jesus says, "For 2 or 3 are gathered in my name, there I am with them." And throughout the Bible, it talks about the importance of community. So if you're not sure who this Jesus guy is, or if you don't have a Christian community, Maranatha Assemblies of God in Forest Lake is a great church to get plugged into, with Bible studies, leadership teams, and so much more for all different age groups. For more information, you can go to realchurch.org. Now, back to the episode.
Welcome back, guys. So, Caden, before you were just talking about your story about how you bring your hockey friends, or you help encourage your hockey friends to come to Jesus, and seeing that walk of seeing them, getting closer to Jesus and finding Him. I think that's really encouraging, so super motivating too, in your own life when you see, because often God, we have to seek God's face first, right? Seek a relationship with Him.
Yeah.
But in doing that, then you all of a sudden you start seeing the hand of God. You start seeing His the works, and seeing your friends come to Jesus is one of them that I'm just like, that's probably the one that I would cherish the most.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Is seeing some of the closest people in your life come to Jesus.
And you can see the transformation too, from before and after. So.
My prayer is a lot of times for my friends. It's like, a lot of times you watch people give their lives to Jesus on a night, and then they walk away and they live the same way that they walked in.
Yeah.
They're living the same lifestyle that they walked in with. When we give our lives to Jesus, it's supposed to be this thing where now we live changed and we live differently. And so that was just one thing that I prayed over a lot of my teammates. And so even still to this day, there's a lot of them I'm still praying for, because it's like, man, they still walked away and they're not living the same. But then there's some of them where I look at them and I'm like, man, their life is looking differently. They're living differently. And that's what is really cool for me to see, is even though there was 12 that just raised their hand on that night to give their lives to Jesus, the ones that are still sitting there and still following Jesus, those are the ones where I look back and I'm like, man, God, that is amazing. That's so cool. And so, that's one of the things that, I've kind of seen.
Dude.
But
that's it's super cool. I had a friend who I grew up with him, and I knew him personally his whole life, and he was parents' faith Christian, and so he didn't really commit to Jesus. He had a lot of bad friends too, and so he just more acted like them. He'd act a little more Christian-y at church, if you know what I mean. But then, I always had in my prayers, just praying to God, God, please encounter him. And what's been super cool is, in last year, he ended up, I remember him texting me, and he's like, hey, bro, you know about Jesus, right? Because he stopped coming to church. And I was like, yeah, bro. And he's like, man, I got a question. He's like, can he really change your life? Because he heard about how God changed my life. And what was so cool is I just said, yeah. And I was like, dude, God can do so much in your life. It's amazing how he completely flips the script and uses the things that were meant for evil for good. And he didn't give his life then, but about a month later, I started to see him reading his Bible, and once in a while he send me hey bro, this sticks out to me, this is cool. And I'd be like, bro, that's hype. And now he's full on committed to Jesus.
That's so cool.
And seeing that one friend that's just always been there, and then seeing him come to Jesus is just, bro, I can't even stress it enough. It's one of the coolest things in the world.
Yeah,
it's that's awesome. It's so much fun,
bro. Yeah, I mean, that's just the encouragement for us to live as much like Jesus as we can.
Yeah, and it's cool with stories like that. It's like, man, your friend saw Jesus in you, right? And so that's why you reached out in the first place, is because he saw Jesus in you. And so that's something that I think is so cool, is that if we just begin to live and love like Jesus, we'll watch as the unbelievers are going to start coming running to us.
Yeah.
And so that's cool. That's cool.
Yeah. There's one guy, spiritual leader to me, he told me about this one thing, and he said, I was asking him, because I had a lot of friends who, if I said one thing close, and it was not even bad, they'd put me on to be like, hey, you just said that, or I said Hitler or something, they'd be like, oh my gosh, you're a Christian, you shouldn't be saying that. And so I get a lot of persecution and hate towards them, because they were expecting me to do so much, and normally I was joking, but they would really push that on me. So I asked this one guy, I said, dude, how do I start representing Jesus better? And so they see Jesus in me and everything I do. And one thing he said is before you go into any room, just praying God that they would see Christ through, in front of me, Christ beside me, Christ all around me, every word I say, everything I hear, that I'd hear what you want me to hear, be able to respond the way you'd want me to respond. And it's just that really changed my perspective. When I started doing that, I feel my being more careful what I said it's really changed my perspective.
Yeah.
On how I walk into rooms and how I approach people.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's been really powerful. So yeah, dude. So you talked about how you were sharing, like, or you kind of helped bring your friends to Jesus, right? Your hockey friends. What are some things that have really helped you, live more like Jesus? Like practical things that you started implementing in your life that helped you feel more motivated or confident in living like Jesus or sharing or something.
Yeah. I think one of the biggest things that you can do is walk with Jesus on a daily, like you were talking about. That's a key part. One of the things that really helped me is I went home one day and I wrote on a sheet of paper, I want my relationship with Jesus to become personal. And I stuck it on my wall. And then every single day, whenever I'd walk into my room, I'd walk into my closet, and I would just have one-on-one time with Jesus where I got to write things down that I wanted to pray for, put it on my wall, things like that. And that was something that really helped me develop and grow spiritually, to where I didn't care what people thought about me. I didn't care what my friends said. And that, I think any time that you can learn to get in the presence of God, and I love what you were saying is, before I walk into a room, you pray like, hey, God, would you do this? Would you help people to see you in me? God, would you just, and I think prayers like that, because the Bible talks about getting in the secret place and praying, but it also talks about praying continually, praying without ceasing, making it a thing that you do where you walk with Jesus in your everyday life.
Right.
And so I think that's a key thing, is we as Christians have to have times where we're in the secret place with Jesus.
Yeah.
But we also have to have times on our daily lives where we walk with Jesus in everything that we do.
Not like keeping him in that secret place.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
And I know two things that really changed my life when it comes to prayer, and walking it out to where my friends see Jesus in me is, there's this guy by the name of John Zick. He's over the called ministry for the Assemblies of God, and I was listening to one of his messages one time, and he was talking about the minute or the hourly prayer, where when he was in high school, he really wanted to pray without ceasing, make praying something that he did every day. But he'd find himself walking throughout his day, and he'd get to the end of the day and be like, man, I didn't even pray once. Like I need to figure this out. So what he did is he started to set timers on his phone, where it was like every hour a timer would go off, and it would remind him to pray. And then over a course of a month, 2 months, he realized, man, I was beating myself to the timer, because it created this habit within inside of him where, man, praying wasn't just a thing that he did at night or in the morning, but it was a thing that he did throughout his everyday life. And then eventually he didn't need the timer anymore. And it was just that thing that helped me remember, man, prayer is something that I need to do in everything. And I think one of the greatest things that we can do as believers is intercede on the behalf of unbelievers. Yeah. So we can intercede on the behalf of our friends. We walk into the locker room and it's like, man, God, I just pray that right now you would just show up. Man, may your presence be known. May just things like that. God, may you show up in Tyler's life. May you show up and you just walk through and you just begin to pray for your friends in everything that you do. And even walking into school, wherever you are, you can learn how to intercede on the behalf of your friends. Yeah. And then I think the other thing when it comes to prayer that really helped shape and change my life is I recently heard this guy by the name of Noah Heron.
He's good.
Yeah. He's legit. And he posted this thing about this minute prayer where everything he does throughout the day, he takes a minute before or a minute after everything that he does, and he begins to pray and just thank God for what's been going on and pray over everything. So it's like after this, he'd sit there and he'd pray for a minute. When he gets to the church, he'd sit there and he'd pray for a minute. When he drops his kids off at school, he sits there and he prays for a minute, whatever it is. And I just think that that's something that we can carry into our lives, where we can just sit there and learn what it looks like to have those minute prayers after everything that we do. And I think that helps you walk out your faith and live your faith. We live in a world that wants nothing to do with Jesus. Right. And so if we want to become like Jesus, we have to surround ourselves around Jesus. Otherwise, we're not going to be able to look like Jesus. Right. And so that's why I think it's so important to just learn to pray throughout your day and learn to find those secret moments with Jesus on a daily basis. But I think one of the main things that's helped me lead my friends to Jesus is, I don't like when people make it weird. Like when people make following Jesus weird, like it's never meant to be weird. Right. And so when people walk into a room, it's like, man, you need to follow Jesus. Like if I were to do that to my friends, none of my friends they'd be like, what in the world are you doing, bro? Like, they would think I'm weird.
Yeah.
You know, but I remember walking into the hockey locker room, walking into school, walking into different things with people in high school, and I just remember getting made fun of time and time again for what I believe, getting made fun of for not talking like them, getting made fun of for not sleeping around, for waiting till marriage, all those different things that I just watched as all my friends begin to make fun of me for living the way that I do. But I would just time and time again just respond with, that's not what I'm going to do. Like, that's not how I'm going to live. Because my friends would constantly try to get me to go into different things, do different things, fall into different temptations. But it was just a constant response of, hey, like, that's not who I am. That's not what I'm going to do. And I would get made fun of for it. And sometimes what they were trying to get me to do looked pleasing in the moment, but I just knew it wasn't worth it.
Yeah.
And so it's like now I was able to look back over the course of time, and of all the friends that made fun of me for believing what I believe on my team, I watched as over half of them came back up and said things like, man, Caden, I wish I could know Jesus like you do. Yeah. Like, man, Caden, I wish I waited till marriage. Caden, I wish I didn't do all these things. Caden, and it's like, now you watch as, man, we live in a broken world, but if we as believers can learn what it looks like to truly love Jesus in every season, if we can learn what it looks like to say no to the temptations, if we can learn what it looks like to say no to the things that people are trying to get us to do, because we do live in a world that wants nothing to do with Jesus, but we should, as Christians, learn what it looks like to want to become more like Jesus in everything that we do.
Yeah.
And so that's just one thing that's helped me when it comes to reaching my friends, is just being consistent. Be consistent in your walk with the Lord, where your friends aren't looking at your life and they're not looking at it like, man, Caden said this, but now he's doing this. Yeah. Like, Caden goes to church and now he's cussing me out. Like, Caden goes to church and now he's hooking up with all these girls. Caden goes to church and they say all these things like, you can't do this, but now he's getting drunk with us on the weekends. Like, it's like, well, that's really hypocritical of me if I would do that. Yep. But when they just begin to watch as men, when I live my life, thing is, people are running to all those things because they're broken inside. And so when you choose to live your life and they see the love that is inside of you, they see the fruits of the Spirit living and working in your life, then it's like, man, I don't know what it is, but I want whatever they have. And then I think that is one of the things that has really helped me when it comes to reaching my friends, is just being consistent and learning what it looks like to walk with Jesus. So
yeah, I mean, like, having that what was it? Okay, it happened again.
Bro. The worst, bro. The worst. I get it.
It's the when you're outward with your faith, right, and all these people are pushing you to do like to do all this stuff, and I think what you said is amazing, that it's not worth it. Seeing and being like, man, like, Jesus is so much better. And I feel like a lot of people, they look at your life, you'll say, I'm a Christian, and they'll be like, okay, and you might not think so, but they're watching your life and they're like, how are you living? Are you saying, you said Jesus said don't get drunk, but you're not getting drunk, so you're following Jesus.
Yeah. Or
like you said, you're going on weekends and then all of a sudden you're getting drunk, and they're like, wait, but doesn't your Bible say not to?
Yeah. Exactly. And here's a story that changed my life really quick. A story that helped me just realize that. The thing that I realized is people are watching our every move, whether we like it or not.
Yeah.
Especially
or even if we don't realize it.
Especially because we're Christians. And so it's like, man, in everything that we do, we have to make sure that we're living our lives according to what Scripture says. Because, if you're not going to do it for your own faith, do it for somebody else's. Live your life in a way that somebody else might begin to see the love of Jesus by how you live. And I remember this a while back, there's these two girls I know. We'll just make up names for them for now, but one of them was Estel, the other one was, let's just say Audrey. Just two names. Yeah. And Estel comes to school, and Estel's hanging out with all of her friends, and she starts to do the same things that all of her friends are doing, and they get there one day, and Audrey's like, man, they both go to the same church, and Audrey's like, man, I really want to invite my friends to church. And Audrey goes up and she's inviting her friends to church. They're in the same friend group, and Audrey goes, hey, would you guys come to church with me? And the friends sitting at the lunch table look back at her and they all go, why would we ever want to go there? Your friend Estel that you're hanging out with, You know your friend Estel that goes to church every week? You know your friend Estel that says she follows Jesus? You know your friend Estel that says she is getting in the Word? You know your friend Estel that is claiming to be a Christian? You know, if following Jesus truly changes you, then why is she still doing the same things that we're doing? Why is she still talking the same way we're talking? Why is she hooking up with the same guys we've hooked up with? Why is she living the same lives we lived? And it's like, man, that began to change me, that story, because it's like, people are watching whatever I do, and it's like, if I'm this guy that says, man, this is who I am, man, I believe in Jesus, like this book, it's a priority for me, and then I walk away, and I'm living a contrary life to what the Word of God says, well, people are going to look at that, and they're watching our every moves as Christians, saying, man, well, if they're living like that, it's okay for me to, or why would I ever want a part of that if they're just as broken as I am?
Yeah.
And so it's like this thing, it's this constant tension of, man, this is why we live for Jesus in our schools. This is why we live for Jesus in our workplaces. This is why we live for Jesus in our everyday life. It's not just this thing where we decide to choose Jesus when we come to church, but it's this Monday morning faith. It's this Tuesday morning faith. It's this, you know, like the song Monday Morning Faith from SU. I just thought of that because it's like, I want a Monday morning faith where I walk into school and I still follow Jesus. It's not just this thing where I come to youth on Wednesday nights and Sunday nights, but no, people can see Jesus in the way I live my life through every day of the week. And so that's just something that has changed my life in a huge way, that has had a major impact, is because, man, I just hope that my life people can see Jesus from. And if the way I'm living my life is pushing people away from Jesus, well, then that's scary. You know, that's a scary spot to be. And so, yeah, that's been one of the things that has really challenged me over the years, is that story. So
yeah, that's really good. What would you say, or like, how could you encourage those who, you know, maybe are going to the public schools and they are living their life for Jesus, but they do get made fun of, or they do get like the backlash or whatever? How would you encourage them to I don't know, deal with it, I guess, or move forward with it and stay firm in what they believe? Yeah,
I would say community is huge. You watch all throughout Scripture, all throughout the life of Jesus, he surrounded himself with his disciples, so that way he could teach them and stuff like that. But I think you look at it, and it's like in life, it's so important that we have friends. In life, it's so important that you do life with someone. Like, you even look when God created Adam and Eve. You know, he gave Adam someone to do life with, because we as humans need people to do life with. And so I look at it, and it's like, I'm huge on the aspect of, man, I want to be in the dark places. I want to be in the places where, you know, I can show Jesus. I want to be in the places where people want nothing to do with Jesus, because I hope that I can bring the change. But I also look at it, and it's like, man, if I'm not able to be sound in my faith, well, then I'm not ready to go into the dark places. And I think one of the ways that you need to find yourself in is a spot where you have that community of people, where you're able to run to, where you're able to look to, where you're able to be like, hey man, I've really been struggling with this. Could you just be praying with me? Hey man, I've really been praying for this. I've really been praying that my friend would come to know Jesus. Could you just be praying with me? And like, literally last night, I just got off the phone with one of my buddies. His name's Carter Pruitt. And I just got off the phone with him, and I'm like, he's one of the guys that through life, it's like, man, if we're struggling through something, he's my first call. If there's something I'm battling through, he's my first call. And because it's like, in life, it's important to find those friends where you can do life with that love Jesus just like you do. And at times it can be hard to find that, especially in high school, but I think it's important that as believers in high school, you find those friends that you can run to. You find those friends that you can do life with. So that way when you do walk through things that are tough, when you do get the backlash, like you said, you're able to walk through those seasons because you have others doing it with you. It's so important that you have people doing it with you, because if you constantly just surround yourself with unbelievers, well, then you're going to look a lot like the unbeliever. But if you have that community of people where, man, it's this thing where it's like, man, I'm walking through life with other believers. You begin to watch as now you begin to walk into those dark places, and you still begin to look like Jesus. One of the things that challenges me about Jesus' life is that Jesus, when he hung out with unbelievers, the unbelievers often left changed. And so I look at my life, and I'm like, when I hang out with unbelievers, do I leave changed, or do they? Because when I walk out of a room with unbelievers, my prayer is that they would be the ones that leave changed. And how do you get yourself to a spot where it's like, man, I'm walking into a room with unbelievers, but I'm not leaving changed? Well, one, you have to surround yourself with a group of people that love Jesus, and two, you have to know how to get in the presence of God, and you have to know how to walk with Jesus on your own. And so those are just two things that I think are huge key pieces for anybody trying to live it out. How do you deal with the backlash? Well, you have people that you can rely on and a life that backs it up. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's really good. I like how you mentioned, Jesus and the disciples, because we did a podcast episode on, having a good community, what that looks like, how we can get that. And one of the things we mentioned is obviously Jesus is perfect, but the people around him weren't, but they were still all doing their best to pursue God and grow in their relationship with him. And so, yeah.
And I mean, I look at it too, and it's like, Jesus surrounded himself with a community of people.
Yeah.
So why would I not surround myself with a community of people that I can grow with, that I can do life with, And so, yeah, that's cool. That's good.
And even having those close friends, Jesus had that, like, he had his group of 12 disciples, right? Then he had his few that was like his close buddies, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And then he had the outside disciples, right? The ones who were like just following him around, not the 12, but outside of that. And so, he's surrounded by these people who who definitely were not
perfect.
Good, but then he had those few people and they were gonna help him. It was his group, right?
Yeah.
I think that's powerful for us too, having those.
And also,
and it's important to have you can go.
I was just gonna say, it also says in scripture, we talked about this too, like Jesus always went away by himself to pray and spend time with God. He always went back to the Father. So it's like, just exactly what you said, like the community and having your own personal strong relationship with him.
Yeah, for sure. And it's important to have people in your life that can call you out.
Yeah.
So that way it's easy in life to drift, and it's easy in life to find yourself in a spot you wished you never were. But one of the things I love about my buddy Carter that I was just talking about is it's like, if we're hanging out and I say something I shouldn't say maybe, even if I didn't see anything wrong with it, Carter at the end of the night will come up to me and be like, hey bro, I don't think you probably should have said that. Or hey man, I don't think you probably should have done that. And what it helps you do, even though you might not be crossing the line in the moment, it helps you stay living a life of purity, a life where you're like, man, I'm following Jesus with everything I have. It helps you to stay focused on what really matters and not drift into the things of the world. And so, that's just something that I think is so vital. Your friends, who you surround yourself with, it matters. And another thing is, how do you deal with the backlash? This has been one of the things that's helped me more than anything, is learn what it looks like to have a fear of the Lord. You see, it can be so easy to have a fear of man. It can get so easy to get caught up in what people are thinking of you. But it's like, man, when you truly look at it, it's like when people truly fear the Lord, they live differently.
Right, yeah.
Because it's like, I don't care what other people think of me. I don't care how they look at me, but I'm doing everything to honor and please my Father in heaven.
Yeah.
And so that's just one of the things that I think is key, is learn what it looks like to fear the Lord. And one of the ways, when you talk about having a fear of the Lord, people can oftentimes be like what does that mean? Like, we're not supposed to fear, but we have to have this fear of the Lord. And I remember I was sitting there one night with this one guy that was at this table with my dad, and they were at this table with a bunch of youth pastors sitting around the table, and one of the youth pastors goes, Kirby's my dad. Kirby, I bet you were a huge partier in high school. And my dad goes, actually, I wasn't. And they go, all the guys are like, really? Like that shocks us just from stories, like, as my dad was growing up. And my dad was just an idiot as a kid, but he also loved Jesus too, Yep. And so they're like, man, we thought that you would be a partier. And he's like, actually, I wasn't. And they go, really? And he goes, yeah, in high school, I never did any of that stuff because I didn't want to disappoint my dad. And I knew that if I did that, how much it would disappoint my father. And so I look at it, and when I heard that story of what my dad said, my dad didn't tell it to me, but someone else told it to me. And when I heard it, I'm like, I think that in a way is what it looks like a lot of times to fear the Lord. Where it's like you're sitting there and you're like, man, I don't want to disappoint my father. Like, I have this fear of disappointing my dad. I have this fear of disappointing my Heavenly Father. Yeah. And so I think that's one of the ways. Another way I think is like, man, you have this fear of being separate from God. You have this fear of being away from the Lord. And so when you walk into a room and you hear that backlash, it can a lot of times get easy to, want to do the things that everybody else is doing. Because one, it looks pleasing at times. And two, it's the easier thing to do a lot of times. But to have that fear where it's like, all right, I know this is going to pull me away from my Father. I know this is going to pull me away from God. Like, I have this fear of being pulled away from him. And so I want to live this life that's set apart, where I don't care what people think of me. I don't care the backlash that I'm going to experience, because I know it's so worth it.
Yeah.
And so that's just one of the things that I think is just so key. Learn to develop this fear of God, this healthy fear of the Lord. And you'll watch as it changes the way you live your life completely.
I think it also changes your relationship with God too.
Oh, for sure, bro.
Because I think a lot of times people, like, even in just the relationship with God, they're like, oh, God, I have to be like all perfect, like folded hands every time I talk. But I'm like, I talk to God sometimes just like, yo, God, what's up? I basically like this was so great today. I did this. And, I just feel, that's when I feel God's presence is when I'm just real with him. I'm not like trying to put on this cover. And
for sure.
But still having that, like, not acting like trying to put him like down, like he's like, how do I say this? Like, not.
You still want to like respect him.
Right. I have like, it's like there's that level of respect, and I'm just like you're higher than me, God. But it's that relationship. So combining the two together, relationship and fear, like fear of the Lord, is, I think that's what helped me in my relationship, at least.
Yeah.
The perspective, at least.
Yeah,
so
that's cool.
Yeah, and part of, having the confidence and boldness to live out Jesus through high school, I was in my quiet time the other day, and I really felt on my spirit, like, our love for him, like, the more in love we are with Jesus, like, our love for him makes us bold.
Yeah.
And it's like, there's sometimes I'm like crazy, like, about Jesus. I'm like, oh my gosh, like, I just feel so on fire. Like, it makes me want to just go out and just, like, tell everybody about Jesus, like,
Yeah.
And so I feel like when you do develop that fear of the Lord, the love for the Lord, that personal relationship with him, like, everything after that will, come from him, and it'll, what's the word? I don't know. It'll, what's the,
fall in line.
or, yeah, it's like, there's a verse like, seek first the kingdom of God and everything else will follow, or something like that. Like, everything that comes after, like, will be from him and be from, your love for him and, like, all that stuff.
Yeah, so, it's true.
Yeah.
And what's cool is you can watch as, like, for example, you're talking about this love for the Lord. And I think a lot of people, especially new Christians, look at it and it's like, all right, how do I develop this love for the Lord? Like, I hear people talk about it. But one of the things that's cool is it's like, looking at your life, it's like you watch, the more that you spend in the time, and the more time you spend with Jesus, the more your love grows for him. And so it's like in your life, you're pursuing the Lord, and as you pursue the Lord, you watch as all these things are added to you, like the verse that you just talked about. So it's like, man, you want to develop a hunger for your friends to come to know Jesus, pursue the Lord. Just like Lily, you want to have a hunger for your friends to come to know Jesus, you want to have a hunger to know Jesus more, you want to have a hunger to love Jesus more, learn to pursue Jesus with everything that you have. And so I just think that that's a cool way of looking at it. It's like, man, a lot of times it's like we look at it and it's like, well, how do I do this? We'll just continue to run to Jesus, continue to run to his presence. And it just starts with simple prayers. One of the things that's helped me out a lot when it comes to prayer is write prayers down. So then it's like every day I have this prayer list of I can go through of like, hey, man, all right, today I'm praying for healing over Ashley, today I'm praying for this and this. And it's like every day you just pray for all these different things. And what's cool is I learned this from, you guys know who Micah McDonald is?
Yeah.
Everyone Everywhere.
Yeah, like Everyone Everywhere, bro.
Yep. One of the things that he said one time is he talked about having the prayer list, and he talked about how what's so cool is that when I watch God answer the prayers, I can cross that off my list. And that alone is just so much faith building, is when you watch God show up. So man, pray for big things, write it down on a list, and then watch as you begin to cross those things off that you've been praying for. Watch as you watch God answer prayers. And it's like, that's where you find yourself in a spot like Lily, where Lily's able to walk out and say, man, I just have this hunger for my friends. I just have this hunger for people in my life. It's because she first found herself in the presence of God, seeking after Jesus herself. And so that's the thing that I think is just so powerful and so cool, is that the more that you run after Jesus, the more that you find him.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that's just what I think is cool.
Yeah, that's so good.
What I started doing, actually, you know about AIM, right?
Yeah.
And about how beforehand they put their prayer things or like hopes for the trip in a little envelope, and they seal it up, and then after the trip they open it and see if God did what we were hoping or praying for. And that's something like I heard that this before, because I'm actually going on a mission trip this year to El Salvador. Which would be awesome.
That'd be so fun, bro.
But
it's gonna be cool.
But I heard it from you know Calvin Gazelle, do you?
Yes, I believe so.
So he actually mentioned it, I think, to me. I could be wrong. I'm pretty sure it was him. And he was like, it was one year at PK retreat. And that's Pastor's Kids Retreat, for those of you who don't know. But but he mentioned it to me, and I remember that, like, I was like, oh, that's super sick. I think I'm gonna start doing that. And so what I did is I put a 3-month period, and I write down what I hope God does in these next 3 months and what I'm praying for. And since I started doing that, it's been amazing to look back and be like, wait, I asked God to do that, and he did beyond what I was expecting. Right? Leading one of my friends to Christ. I have a really close friend, and I was asking God to like encounter him completely, and like that he would 100% commit to God. And you know, he ended up in 3 months, he was like always talking about God.
Wow.
That was like his main topic. And I was like, man, God answered that prayer like so well. So I think that's something that really motivated me.
Yeah, and when you are in those tough seasons, we talked about this too before, like you can go back and look and see, you know, like, oh, he did do this, he is faithful, he will come through, you know. It might not be what we think it will look like, but he will, and we can have that faith from personal experience, you know, and know that he'll be there with us.
And I think that's so cool about how you talk about looking back at the seasons. I look at, like, right now I'm reading through the story of David's life, and do you guys know the song "Trust in God"?
Yep.
Yes.
So
that's such a good song.
It is. I love what it says. I love what it says at the beginning. It says, "What you did for me on Calvary is more than enough." So it talks about how then I sought the Lord and he heard and he answered, and it says that's why I trust him. But when I'm singing that out, like, this is why I trust God, I'm singing it out throughout the whole song. Coming back to the beginning because of what he's done on Calvary. So when you're walking through those tough seasons, just remember what Jesus has already done for you, and that you're gonna be able to make it through because of what he's already done. And I just love in that song where Stephen Furtick was the one that wrote it, and I was a while back listening to the heartbeat behind the song. And he goes, when David was singing the song, he goes, I sought the Lord, and he heard, and he answered. But if David would have been singing that, because David actually wrote that part.
Psalms 34,
And if David would have been singing that while he was going through the battle, it would have sounded a lot differently. You know, it would have sounded like, I sought the Lord, and then Saul tried to kill me. You know, it's like a lot of times you don't necessarily see it in the moment. You don't necessarily see it while you're going through the battle. But then David, in the end, is able to look back and say, man, I sought the Lord, and he heard and he answered. And so just in those tough seasons, just continue to seek Jesus. You know, because it can get easy a lot of times in life when you get into the tough seasons to run to the things of the world. To run one direction, to run. But it's so important that we continue to run towards Jesus, because in the end, we'll be able to look back and say, I sought the Lord and he heard and he answered. But if we run to the things of the world, we'll never be able to say that. You know? So I just think it's so important to just continue to run to Jesus in those seasons. But
that's so good.
Man, this conversation has been amazing. I'm so glad to have you. But before we close this out, okay, I got another one of my just random questions that has nothing to do.
My favorite type of questions.
I'm gonna do this one. What is the best or your favorite book in the Bible?
Oh, all right. So my favorite book in the Bible is James.
James. Ooh.
That's a good one.
It's pretty good. Like, I look through it and I'm like, man, he just knew what I was walking through. You know, like, he just knew, and he, like, but I love that book. I also like Ecclesiastes a lot.
Dude,
because
Ecclesiastes
it's an interesting book, and I don't think a lot of times people would say that that's their favorite, but the reason why I like it
is because meaningless.
Yes, exactly. It can get so easy to get caught up in the things of the world, where it's like, man, I want this, I want to build up for that, but it's like, no, let's build up for what matters, because everything is here. Everything that here is meaningless unless it's done with an eternal purpose. So let's live our lives in a way where we live for an eternal purpose, to build up for what lasts. And so those are two books that I'm like, I love both those books a lot.
Ecclesiastes, though, I actually got done reading that I think that was a month ago or something. But it was like you're reading through it and dude's like, yeah, gaining this wisdom and all that stuff. I'm like, oh, cool. It's meaningless. I'm like, all right, bud. Everything he just has to go back.
Exactly.
So, dude, it's great. It's fun. Lily, what is your favorite book in the Bible or best one?
I don't know if I have a favorite. I'd probably say the Gospels, just because I just love Jesus.
Basic
I just love
original.
reading about Jesus. And
Exactly. It's hard to beat. It's hard to beat the
Probably
gospel. It's hard to beat the gospel.
Yeah.
I would agree.
There's so much you can get from everything.
Matthew's pretty good. I like Matthew a lot too.
Matthew's good. John kind of tops it for me for the Gospels.
Yep.
Like that one's just, I don't know. It's real easy.
I feel like my favorite is just whatever I'm reading at the moment, because I feel like
Mark and Luke are pretty good too.
Yeah.
They're all pretty good.
Just like all 66 books, probably like my top ones.
Yeah. Exodus.
I'd say
Numbers.
No, Leviticus is the best one. Yeah. Songs of Solomon.
Yeah.
Oh, that's clown.
Ty, you cannot say that yet, bro.
Yeah, I'm a Christian. No. I would say Romans. Romans is like top for me. There's so many things in it. Like, you want a book in the New Testament, that one. That one's good.
Yeah.
So
you can get so much from every single one. So
for every book, dude.
Yeah.
For different seasons.
Whatever one's challenging me in this season.
Yeah.
Right.
Either my least favorite or my favorite.
Yeah, 100%.
Dude, James, when you said James, I was like, that one, dude, so many times it's just like knife to the heart so many times.
I know. It's like a slap to the face. Like,
anytime.
I gotta
always.
get it together, bro.
Yeah.
The one about like, I think it's chapter 3, it talks about taming the tongue.
Yeah.
That one, I remember, because I like used to like have a problem with like swearing a lot. And so it was, when I read through that, it was like the first time reading through it, meaning it, and I get to that, and I just got done like yelling at my brother or something like that because I was pissed at him, and then I read it, and he's like open the Bible, I'm like, oh, I just need to spend time with you, God. Taming the tongue, I'm like, come on, man.
like exactly. Like, it's like the Lord knew you need to hear it.
Right. Bro.
That's what you get.
That's the worst, isn't it?
It is. It's like the worst in a good way.
Yeah.
Dude, God always knows when.
He always shows up.
Right.
It's true.
When to say things.
It's true.
Yeah.
Things. It's fun.
Yeah.
Great.
Well, thank you guys so much for tuning in and joining with us.
Yeah, thank you, Caden, for coming on. I'm Ty.
I'm Lily.
And remember to be led by the word.
And not by the world.
And we'll see you guys next time on the Youth POV podcast.